Salt and Surrender. Chapter 1. The GPS announced Amber's arrival in Coral Bay with the same mechanical indifference it had maintained for the past 4 hours. She killed the engine and stared through her windshield at paradise. White sand stretched endlessly in both directions, interrupted only by clusters of weathered beach houses painted in faded pastels. The ocean glittered like broken glass under the late afternoon sun, and the air, even through closed windows, smelled of salt and possibility. This was it, her summer. 3 months of uninterrupted research, building her academic portfolio, and proving to Professor Lang that she deserved the grant over the 47 other applicants who'd competed for it. Amber grabbed her phone and pulled up the housing assignment email for the 5th time that day. Asterisk. Beach House 7, Coral Drive. Key under mat. Your research partner will arrive separately. Asterisk. Research partner. The words still made her stomach twist. She'd submitted her grant proposal as a solo project. Environmental documentation didn't require partnership. It required focus, dedication, and the kind of obsessive attention to detail that other people found exhausting. But the university's research board had restructured the program to encourage collaboration. Translation: budget cuts meant combining projects. Amber checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. She looked exactly like what she was, a 20-year-old academic overachiever with anxiety management issues and a color-coded planner in her messenger bag. You've got this, she told herself. Whoever they assigned you will probably be thrilled to let you take the lead anyway. She grabbed her bags from the trunk and made her way up the wooden steps to Beach House 7. It was smaller than the photos suggested, painted a soft yellow that was peeling near the windows. The porch creaked under her feet. Charming, she decided. Rustic. The key was exactly where promised. Amber unlocked the door and stepped inside, immediately cataloging everything. Open-plan living area, kitchen to the left, sliding glass doors leading to a deck with ocean views, narrow hallway that presumably led to bedrooms and bathroom. Perfect. She could set up her equipment in the living room, use the kitchen table as a workstation. Oh, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Amber spun around. Standing in the hallway, shirtless, with wet hair and a towel slung around his neck, was Jackson Reed. Her vision actually blurred for a second. This couldn't be happening. The universe could not possibly hate her this much. Hayes? Jackson's expression shifted from surprise to something that looked dangerously close to amusement. No way. You're my research partner? Get out, Amber said flatly. Wrong house. Nope. He held up his phone, showing her the same email she'd read 5 times. Beach House 7. I've been here for an hour already. Claimed the room with the better view. This was a nightmare, an actual waking nightmare. Jackson Reed was campus royalty captain of the surf team, perpetual center of attention, and the guy who'd spent their entire freshman year making her life miserable. The debate competition incident alone had been enough to earn him a permanent spot on her list of people who should be launched into the Sunday. He'd challenged her argument about coastal erosion patterns, then proceeded to charm the judges with some half-researched nonsense about letting nature take its course. When she'd called him out on his complete lack of scientific rigor, he'd smiled at her like she was adorable and said, "Maybe you should relax a little, Hayes. The ocean isn't going to evaporate because you can't control it." The audience had laughed. She'd lost the competition. And now he was here, in her beach house, shirtless. "There's been a mistake," Amber said, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling Professor Lang." "Good luck with that. She's on a research vessel in the Arctic until August." Jackson leaned against the wall, looking entirely too comfortable. "We're stuck with each other, Roomie." "Don't call me that." "What should I call you? Partner? Colleague?" His grin widened. "Sweetheart? How about nothing? We don't need to speak at all." Amber stormed past him into the hallway, desperately needing to put distance between herself and the 6 feet of sun-bronzed muscle currently occupying her personal space. There were 2 bedrooms, one with the door open, already scattered with Jackson's belongings, and one empty. She chose the empty one and slammed the door. This couldn't be happening. 3 months. She had to spend 3 months living with Jackson Reed, the most infuriating human being she'd ever encountered. The man who'd humiliated her, who treated everything like a joke, who probably didn't even know what ecological documentation meant. Amber sat on the bed and forced herself to breathe. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. The breathing exercise her therapist had taught her for managing anxiety. It didn't help. A knock on the door made her jump. "Go away." "Look," Jackson said through the wood. "I know this isn't ideal for either of us." "Not ideal?" Amber yanked the door open. "You cost me a debate championship. You've spent 2 years making fun of everything I care about. And now I'm supposed to share a house with you and pretend we're colleagues?" Something flickered across his face too quick for her to identify. "That was freshman year. People change." "You haven't. How would you know? You've avoided me for 2 years straight." Because looking at him made her feel things she didn't want to feel. Because he was everything. She'd trained herself not to want chaos and charm and the kind of casual confidence that came from never having to fight for anything. "I'm calling the housing office," Amber said. "There has to be another option." "There isn't." Jackson's voice lost its teasing edge. "Town's booked solid for summer. Tourists, fishing season, some music festival in July. This was the only place available. Then I'll find a hotel." "With what money?" "The grant barely covers equipment and supplies." He was right. Amber hated that he was right. She stood there, trapped between her bedroom and Jackson's infuriating presence, calculating alternatives and coming up empty. She'd blown her savings on textbooks and lab fees. Her parents couldn't help they were still paying off her brother's medical bills. And the nearest university housing was 3 hours away. "We need ground rules," she finally said. Jackson's grin returned. "I'm listening. Stay out of my way. Don't touch my equipment. Don't bring random people back here. And absolutely no—" She gestured vaguely at his bare chest. "Walking around like that?" "Like what?" "Half naked." "It's a beach house, Hayes. In summer. What did you expect, business casual?" Heat crawled up her neck, and she hated herself for it. "Just keep your distance." "Whatever you say, partner." He pushed off the wall, still wearing that insufferable smile. "I'm making dinner if you want some. Fair warning, my cooking skills are limited to anything that can be grilled or eaten raw. I'll pass." "Suit yourself." He disappeared back down the hallway, leaving Amber alone with the sinking realization that she'd just committed to the longest summer of her life. She pulled out her planner and flipped to June. Week 1. Equipment setup. Preliminary coastal surveys. Water sample collection. Week 2. Begin documentation. Establish baseline data. Coordinate with Professor Lang. A crash from the kitchen interrupted her planning. "I'm fine," Jackson called out. "Just establishing dominance over the cookware." Amber closed her eyes and counted to 10. Then 20. This was going to be a disaster. Number, Chapter 2. Amber woke to the sound of crashing waves and the smell of coffee. For one blissful moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back like cold water. Jackson. Beach house, 3 months. She checked her phone. 6:47 a.m. Good. Early enough that she could avoid him if he was still sleeping. She'd spent half the night rehearsing her survival strategy: rise early, leave for fieldwork, return late, repeat until September. But when she emerged from her bedroom, Jackson was already in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a mug in his hand and the morning sun turning his hair golden. He was wearing a shirt this time, small mercies. "Morning sunshine," he said. "Coffee's fresh." Amber grunted something that might have been acknowledgement and made a beeline for the coffee maker. She needed caffeine before attempting human interaction, especially with him. "Sleep okay?" Jackson asked. "The walls are pretty thin. If I was snoring, just throw something at the wall." "I didn't hear anything." "Really? Because I definitely heard you organizing something at 2 in the morning. Very rhythmic, clicky." Her equipment. She'd spent 2 hours arranging her water testing supplies by category and label color. "I was unpacking." "At 2 a.m.? I couldn't sleep." "Because you were too busy plotting my murder?" Despite herself, Amber felt the corner of her mouth twitch. She caught it before it became a smile. The thought crossed my mind. "See? We're bonding already." Jackson refilled his mug. "So what's the plan for today?" "I'm thinking we should hit the North Beach first. The erosion patterns there are I've already mapped out the research schedule." Amber pulled a printed document from her bag and slid it across the counter. Week-by-week breakdown, site rotation, sample collection protocols, data logging procedures. Jackson picked up the schedule. His eyebrows climbed higher with each page. "This is very detailed. That's called being prepared. This is called being terrifying." He flipped to page 3. "You even have bathroom breaks scheduled?" Those are equipment calibration windows. Right. Obviously. He set the papers down. Hayes, we're studying beach erosion, not launching a space shuttle. If you're not going to take this seriously, I'm serious. His expression shifted, losing the teasing edge. I need this grant. I'm just saying maybe we could, I don't know, leave room for flexibility. Flexibility is how projects fail. Control is how people burn out. They stared at each other across the kitchen, the tension thick enough to cut. Amber noticed details she didn't want to notice: the way his jaw tightened when he was frustrated, the gold flecks in his hazel eyes, the way he gripped his coffee mug like he was physically restraining himself from saying something. Fine, she said finally. We'll use my schedule as a framework. If you have suggestions based on actual research, not vibes, I'll consider them. Generous. Take it or leave it. I'll take it. Jackson drained his coffee. But I've got one condition. Of course you do. We need house rules. Real ones. Not just your list of everything I'm not allowed to do. Amber crossed her arms, such as equal division of chores, shared grocery costs, no passive-aggressive notes on the fridge, and he paused, something mischievous flickering in his expression. We each get one veto per week. Veto? If you're doing something that drives me crazy, I can veto it. Same for you. That's ridiculous. Then I guess I'll just keep leaving my towels on the bathroom floor. You wouldn't. Try me, Hayes. This was extortion. Amber wanted to argue, to point out that this was her research project and she shouldn't have to compromise. But the reality was clear. They were stuck together. Fighting him every day would be exhausting. Fine, she said, but the veto can't interfere with actual research work. Deal. Jackson held out his hand. Amber looked at it for a long moment before shaking. His grip was warm, calloused, and lasted a fraction of a second longer than necessary. She pulled away quickly, grabbing her coffee. I'm heading to the North Beach at 8. Be ready or stay here. Oh, I'll be ready, his grin returned. Wouldn't miss our first day of forced collaboration for anything. The North Beach was perfect. Amber stood at the waterline, her equipment bag slung over her shoulder, and felt something close to peace for the first time since arriving in Coral Bay. This was why she'd applied for the grant. Not the beach house drama, not the impossible roommate situation, the science, the patterns, the quiet truth of erosion and time. Okay, I'll admit it, Jackson said, coming to stand beside her. This is pretty incredible. He'd changed into board shorts and a faded t-shirt, looking far too comfortable in his skin. Amber had opted for practical, quick-dry pants, tank top, hat, sunscreen. She looked like she was ready for field work. He looked like he was ready for a photo shoot. The cliff face shows clear stratification, she said, pointing. See those layers? Each one represents a different geological period. The rate of erosion directly correlates to... I know what stratification is, Hayes. I wasn't sure you'd paid attention in Geology 101. I got an A-. How disappointing for you. Jackson laughed, actually laughed. Did you just make a joke? Should I mark this in my calendar? Let's just focus on the work. They spent the next 3 hours collecting samples, taking measurements, and documenting changes from the baseline data Professor Lang had provided. Despite her reservations, Amber had to admit that Jackson wasn't completely useless. He knew the equipment, understood the protocols, and didn't complain when she asked him to wade into waist-deep water to collect samples from the tidal zone. What he did do was talk. Constantly. So, why environmental science? He asked as they labeled water samples. Specifically coastal ecology? Why does anyone choose anything? Amber said, not looking up from her notebook. That's not an answer. I like patterns. I like solving problems. I like that data doesn't lie. Unlike people? She did look up then. Yes, exactly like that. Jackson was quiet for a moment, studying her with an expression she couldn't read. Someone really did a number on you, huh? Excuse me? To make you this suspicious of everyone. I'm not suspicious. I'm realistic. Amber capped her pen. People are unpredictable. They say one thing and do another. They make promises they don't keep. Data, research, science, those things are reliable. Sounds lonely. It's efficient. Those aren't the same thing. Before Amber could respond, a wave larger than the others rolled in, soaking them both to their knees. She yelped, stumbling backward, and Jackson's hand shot out to steady her. His fingers wrapped around her upper arm, firm and warm, and for a split second they were close enough that she could see the drop of seawater sliding down his neck, could smell salt and sunscreen, and something undefinable that was just him. Then she yanked away, her heart pounding harder than the situation warranted. "Thanks," she muttered. "Anytime." His voice sounded different, rougher. They finished the morning's work in relative silence, the easy banter replaced by something heavier. Amber told herself it was just the heat, the sun, the physical exertion. It had nothing to do with the way she kept catching herself watching the muscles in Jackson's forearms as he hauled equipment, or how her skin still tingled where he'd touched her. By the time they returned to the beach house, it was past noon and Amber was exhausted. She headed straight for the shower, letting cold water wash away the salt and the lingering confusion. When she emerged, towel-dried and changed, she found Jackson on the deck with his laptop open and a textbook beside him. "What are you doing?" she asked. He looked up, almost guilty. "Reading." "About?" "Marine ecosystem modeling, for the project." Amber moved closer despite herself. The textbook was advanced upper-level coursework, the same material she'd studied last semester. "You're taking this seriously." "I told you I was." "You also told our entire politics class that you believed in radical beach democracy and thought all laws should be voted on via surfing competition." "That was a joke." "Was it?" Jackson closed his laptop. "Look, I know what people think about me. Class clown, surf bum, guy who coasts on charm. And yeah, maybe some of that's true. But this grant?" He gestured at the ocean. "This is important to me. I'm not going to screw it up." There was something in his voice, an edge of desperation that Amber recognized because she'd felt it herself, the fear of failure, the need to prove something. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay, I believe you, about taking it seriously." Jackson's expression softened. "Progress. By the end of summer, we might almost be friends. Let's not get ahead of ourselves." But as she walked back inside, Amber couldn't quite suppress the small smile that tugged at her lips. Number, Chapter 3. By day 5, they'd fallen into an uneasy rhythm. Wake early. Coffee in tense silence. Beach work until noon. Lunch separately. More work. Dinner negotiations. Careful avoidance until bedtime. It should have been working. Instead, Amber found herself increasingly aware of every sound Jackson made, every space he occupied, every moment their paths crossed in the small beach house. He left wet towels on the bathroom floor like he'd threatened. She color-coded the refrigerator. He played music too loud. She woke him at 6 a.m. with her alarm. They were driving each other slowly insane. "I'm using my veto," Amber announced on Thursday morning. Jackson looked up from his cereal. "On what?" "Your music. Last night it was so loud I could hear it through my headphones. I was listening to a podcast about ocean acidification. At full volume, I was doing dishes. The water's loud. Then maybe pause the podcast until you're done with the dishes." "Or," Jackson said, setting down his spoon with deliberate calm, "you could stop treating this house like a library. We don't all need to exist in total silence." "I'm not asking for silence. I'm asking for reasonable volume after 10 p.m. And I'm asking you to stop acting like I'm some kind of intruder. I live here too." They glared at each other across the kitchen table. The air felt charged, electric with frustration and something else Amber refused to name. "Fine," she said. "House meeting. Tonight. We need to actually discuss these rules instead of just passively resenting each other. Finally, something we agree on." The house meeting lasted approximately 12 minutes before it devolved into chaos. "You reorganized the entire kitchen," Jackson said, gesturing at the cabinets. "I can't find anything. Everything is labeled. Everything is insane. Why are the plates arranged by size? Why would they be arranged any other way? By usage, the ones we actually use in front." Amber stood her ground. "The system is logical. The system is controlling. And your system is what, exactly? Chaos? Just throwing things wherever? It's called being flexible, Hayes. You should try it sometime." "I am flexible." Jackson laughed sharp and disbelieving. "You scheduled bathroom breaks. Equipment calibration windows. You made a spreadsheet for towel rotation. So they dry evenly?" They were both standing now, the couch between them like a demilitarized zone. Amber's heart was racing, her face hot with anger and embarrassment and something that felt dangerously close to excitement. "You know what your problem is?" Jackson said, rounding the couch. "I'm sure you're about to tell me." You're terrified of anything you can't control, of anything unexpected, of anyone getting close enough to... Close enough to what? Amber challenged. Tilting her chin up, Jackson stopped. They were less than 2 feet apart, close enough that she could see his chest rising and falling with quick breaths, could feel the heat radiating off his skin. To mess up your perfect little plans, he finished, but his voice had gone quiet. You've been messing up my plans since freshman year. Yeah? Something flickered in his expression. How's that working out for you? The air between them felt thick, charged. Amber's brain was screaming at her to step back, to retreat to her room, to put distance between herself and whatever this was. But her body wouldn't cooperate. This was a mistake, she whispered. What was? Agreeing to this partnership, we can barely have a conversation without fighting. Maybe fighting is better than the alternative. What alternative? Jackson's gaze dropped to her mouth. Just for a second. Just long enough that Amber's breath caught in her throat. Then he stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I need air. He grabbed his keys and left, the door closing with careful restraint, which somehow felt worse than if he'd slammed it. Amber stood frozen in the living room, her pulse thundering in her ears. That hadn't been normal arguing. That had been something else entirely. Something dangerous. She forced herself to sit down, to breathe, to pull out her laptop and focus on data analysis. But the numbers swam on the screen, meaningless, because all she could think about was the way Jackson had looked at her mouth. Like he was starving. Like she was water. He came back 2 hours later with Thai food and a careful expression. Truce? He offered, holding up the bag. I got that spicy basil thing you ordered last time we did the group project in marine bio. Amber blinked. You remember my Thai order from sophomore year? I remember a lot of things. He set the food on the counter. Look, I'm sorry. For pushing. You're right, we're stuck together. And fighting makes everything harder. I'm sorry too, Amber said quietly, for being so rigid. This grant is important to me. I know, it's important to me too. Jackson started unpacking containers. So, let's make a deal. We both dial it back. I'll keep the music down. You can keep your cabinet labels. And we try to remember we're supposed to be on the same team. Okay, team. The word felt strange in her mouth. They ate on the deck, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The food was good. The silence was almost comfortable. And when Jackson told a story about his surf teammate wiping out spectacularly during practice, Amber found herself laughing. Really laughing. There it is, Jackson said softly. What? Your real smile. I was starting to think it was extinct. Amber felt her cheeks warm. I smile. Not like that, you don't. She looked away, out at the ocean. The sky was turning pink and gold, painting the water in shades of summer. This is nice, she admitted. The view. Yeah, Jackson said. But when she glanced over, he was looking at her, not the sunset. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. I should clean up, she said abruptly, standing. Hayes, thanks for dinner. She escaped inside before he could finish whatever he'd been about to say, because staying out there felt dangerous. Sitting in the golden light with Jackson, looking at her like that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. And Amber had spent her whole life avoiding the fall. Number, Chapter 4. Saturday morning brought perfect weather and the first real test of their partnership. According to Amber's schedule, they were supposed to document the tidal pools on the South Beach, a full day of wading through water, photographing specimens, and collecting samples. It also required swimsuits. Amber had packed a practical one-piece, black, athletic, the kind of thing that said, I'm here for science, not aesthetics. But when she emerged from her room wearing it with shorts and a tank top over it, she found Jackson in the kitchen wearing only board shorts and sunglasses, his wetsuit hanging over his shoulder. He froze mid-sip of coffee. What? Amber said defensively. Nothing. Nothing. He set down his mug. You ready? Obviously. The South Beach was less crowded than the North, with clusters of dark rocks creating natural tidal pools that teemed with life. Amber had been looking forward to this part of the research. Tidal ecosystems were her favorite, all those tiny worlds existing in the space between land and sea. What she hadn't anticipated was how intimate the work would be. The pools were small, which meant working in close proximity. Amber would be crouched over one side taking photographs while Jackson measured pH levels on the other, their arms brushing, their legs pressed against the same sun-warmed rock. When they had to move to a deeper pool, Jackson went in first and held out his hand to help her down. She took it because refusing would have been childish. His palm was rough with calluses, his grip steady. He didn't let go until she was stable on the slippery rocks. "Thanks," she murmured. "No problem." By midday, Amber had shed her tank top and shorts, working in just her swimsuit because the heat was unbearable. She tried not to notice that Jackson's eyes lingered for half a second before he very deliberately looked away. Tried and failed. "So what got you into surfing?" she asked, desperate for distraction. Jackson looked surprised by the question. "You actually want to know? We're supposed to be teammates, right? Might as well know something about each other beyond our mutual irritation." He laughed at that. "Fair. I started when I was 7. My dad taught me. It was our thing, you know? Before he..." Jackson trailed off. "Before what?" "Before he decided being a dad was too much work." He said it casually, but Amber heard the edge underneath. "He left when I was 12. Surfing was the one thing that still felt like it was mine, like I was good at something that mattered." Amber's chest tightened. "I'm sorry. Ancient history." Jackson focused on his pH meter with unnecessary intensity. "What about you? When did you become obsessed with controlling every variable in the universe?" "I'm not," she stopped because arguing felt pointless. "My brother got sick when I was 14, rare blood disorder. He was in and out of hospitals for 2 years. I remember thinking that if I could just understand it, if I could just research enough, find the right information, I could fix it. Did you?" "No, the doctors fixed it. I felt so helpless. So I threw myself into studying, into things I could control, things that made sense." She picked up a tiny crab, watching it scuttle across her palm. "Science doesn't abandon you. It doesn't get sick. It just is what it is." When she looked up, Jackson was watching her with an expression she couldn't name. "Your brother, he's okay now?" he asked. "Yeah, he's at art school in Portland, making weird sculptures and dating a girl who rides a motorcycle. He's happy." "That's good." Jackson paused. "For what it's worth, I think he's lucky to have a sister who cares that much." Amber's throat felt tight. "Thanks." They worked in silence after that, but it was different, softer, like they'd traded pieces of themselves and gained something fragile in return. When they broke for lunch, sitting on the beach with sandwiches Amber had packed, Jackson stretched out on the sand like a cat in sunshine. "This is the best part," he said. "Right here. Sun, ocean, no exams, no pressure, just existing. We're literally here for work. We're here for research, which is basically getting paid to hang out at the beach. Best summer ever. You're impossible. You're uptight." "I am not uptight." Jackson propped himself up on one elbow, grinning. "Hayes, you scheduled our lunch break down to the minute. You're the definition of uptight. Organization is not the same as..." She didn't get to finish because Jackson flicked water at her. Amber stared at him in disbelief. "Did you just..." He did it again. "Jackson Reed, I swear." "What? Going to file a formal complaint? Create a spreadsheet about my inappropriate water flicking?" Amber's response was to grab a handful of wet sand and lob it at his chest. Jackson's eyes went wide. "Oh, that's how it is?" "That's how it is." What followed was the most undignified 15 minutes of Amber's adult life. They chased each other up and down the beach like children, throwing water, sand, and insults in equal measure. Jackson was faster, but Amber was sneaky, getting him with a perfectly aimed splash when he wasn't looking. By the time they collapsed back on their towels, breathless and laughing, Amber felt lighter than she had in months. "Okay," Jackson panted. "I take it back. You're not completely uptight. And you're not completely insufferable." High praise from Amber Hayes. She turned her head to look at him. He was covered in sand, his hair wet and messy, grinning like he'd won something. The sun made his skin glow gold, and his eyes got... She'd never noticed how many colors were in his eyes. The moment stretched, shifted. Jackson's smile faded, replaced by something intense. His gaze dropped to her mouth again, lingering this time. The air between them felt thick with possibility. Amber's heart hammered against her ribs. "We should get back to work," she whispered. "Yeah," Jackson said, but neither of them moved. The spell broke when a family with small children walked past, the kids shrieking and running toward the water. Amber sat up quickly, brushing sand from her legs with shaking hands. "I'll grab the equipment," she said. "Amber, it's fine. Let's just finish the South Pools. She didn't wait for his response, didn't trust herself to hear whatever he might say. Because something was happening between them, something she absolutely could not allow. Jackson Reed was chaos. He was the opposite of everything safe and controlled. Getting involved with him, even considering it was academic suicide. So why couldn't she stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her? Like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. Number. Chapter 5. The discovery came on Tuesday morning, entirely by accident. Amber had woken earlier than usual, and found Jackson's bedroom door open. He wasn't inside, but his laptop was, sitting open on his desk with a document clearly visible. She shouldn't have looked. She definitely shouldn't have read it. But there it was. An email from the university registrar's office, dated 2 weeks before the summer program started. Asterisk, Mr. Reed. This serves as your final warning regarding your academic standing. You are currently enrolled in Advanced Marine Systems, a required course for your major. Your current grade of 58% falls below the minimum threshold for scholarship retention. Failure to achieve a passing grade of 70% or higher will result in immediate scholarship termination and potential dismissal from the program. Asterisk. The summer research project offers a remedial opportunity. Successful completion will replace your Advanced Marine Systems grade. This is your final chance to remain enrolled at the university. Asterisk. Amber read it twice. Then 3 times. Jackson needed this grant to stay in school. His entire future depended on this summer. And he'd never said a word. She heard footsteps on the deck and quickly retreated to the kitchen, her mind racing. This changed everything. Jackson wasn't here as her equal partner. He was here as a student on academic probation, desperately trying to save his scholarship. No wonder he'd been reading advanced textbooks. No wonder he took the work seriously, despite his casual attitude. He was terrified. Jackson came in from his morning surf, hair dripping, wetsuit peeled to his waist. He stopped when he saw her expression. What's wrong? Amber made a split-second decision. Nothing. Just tired. You look upset. I'm fine. She grabbed her coffee mug. We should leave early today. I want to get samples from the pier before the fishing boats come in. Jackson studied her for a long moment, clearly not believing her, but he didn't push. Sure, give me 20 minutes. As soon as he disappeared into the bathroom, Amber pulled out her phone and searched for the Advanced Marine Systems syllabus. It was a brutal course. She'd barely scraped an A- herself. The kind of class that required serious dedication and advanced understanding of marine ecosystem modeling. Jackson had been failing. But looking at his notes, his textbooks, the work he'd been doing for their research project, he clearly understood the material. He wasn't dumb. So what had gone wrong? She thought about his surf team commitments, the pressure of maintaining a scholarship while competing, the way he always seemed to be performing for someone. Maybe he'd spread himself too thin. Maybe he'd been too proud to ask for help. Maybe he was more like her than she'd realized. By the time Jackson emerged, ready for fieldwork, Amber had made another decision. Hey, she said. I was thinking about the data analysis component. Yeah? Professor Lang is going to want ecosystem modeling for the final report, the kind of advanced computational stuff we did in marine systems. Jackson's expression flickered. Right. I was thinking we could work on it together. Divide and conquer. You take the northern sites, I'll take the southern, and we'll compare models. You want to split it up? Unless you'd rather work on it as a team? She kept her voice carefully neutral. I could show you my approach from last semester. It might be useful. Something shifted in his expression, a flash of relief so intense it made Amber's chest hurt. That would be good, he said quietly. Yeah, that would be really helpful. Okay then, we'll start tonight after dinner. They spent the day at the pier, collecting samples and documenting changes in the ecosystem around the dock pilings. Jackson was quieter than usual, thoughtful. Amber caught him looking at her several times with an expression she couldn't read. That night, after they'd eaten and cleaned up, they spread out on the living room floor with laptops and textbooks between them. Okay, Amber said, Marine Ecosystem Modeling 101. The basics are about understanding interconnected systems, how each variable affects the others. She walked him through the computational approaches, explaining the algorithms and showing him her notes from the previous semester. Jackson absorbed everything quickly, asking smart questions that proved he understood the concepts, even if the execution had given him trouble. "You're really good at this," he said after an hour. "At teaching, at caring, about people understanding." He leaned back against the couch. "Most people who are smart like you, they don't have patience for anyone who struggles. You're not struggling, you just needed a different approach. Still, thanks." They worked until nearly midnight, and by the end, Jackson had successfully built his first ecosystem model. It was rough, but solid. A foundation to build on. "I should probably tell you something," he said as they were closing laptops. Amber's heart jumped. "What?" "I'm not. This grant isn't just important to me because I care about the research." He met her eyes. "It's the only thing standing between me and losing my scholarship. If I don't ace this summer, I'm done." "I know," Amber said softly. His eyes widened. "How?" "Your laptop. This morning, I saw the email. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have looked." "But you did." "I did." Jackson ran a hand through his hair. "So, you've been helping me all night, knowing I'm basically using this project to save my ass?" "I've been helping you because you deserve help. Because you're smart and you work hard and you just needed someone to believe in you instead of judging you." The silence that followed felt enormous. "Why?" Jackson finally asked. "Why would you help me after everything? After I humiliated you freshman year? After all the fighting?" "Because people change," Amber said. "You told me that the first day, remember? And I think maybe you were right." Jackson moved closer, his expression intense. "You're not what I expected, Hayes." "What did you expect?" "Someone cold, analytical, robotic." He shook his head. "But you're not. You're passionate and brilliant, and you care so much it practically radiates off you." Amber's breath caught. They were close enough now that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes, could count his eyelashes if she wanted to. "Jackson, tell me to leave," he whispered. "Tell me you're not feeling this too, and I'll go to my room right now. I should tell you that, but you won't." "I can't." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. The touch was electric, sending shivers down her spine. Every rational thought in Amber's brain screamed warnings, but her body leaned into his palm like a flower seeking sun. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "Terrible idea." Jackson agreed. "We're partners, colleagues. The worst possible situation. We still have 2.5 months together. Plenty of time to make it worse. We should stop. Definitely should stop." But neither of them moved away. Jackson's gaze dropped to her mouth. Amber's lips parted. The space between them felt charged with electricity. Every breath synchronized, every heartbeat echoing. "Fuck it," Jackson breathed, and closed the distance. The kiss exploded through Amber like lightning. Jackson's lips were soft but insistent, tasting like coffee in summer. His hand slid into her hair while the other found her waist, pulling her closer. Amber made a sound she'd never heard herself make before, desperate, needy, and kissed him back with everything she had. They tumbled onto the floor. Notebooks scattering, laptops forgotten. Jackson rolled them so he was above her, his weight perfect and overwhelming. Amber's hands found his shoulders, his neck, threading through his hair as the kiss deepened. It was nothing like she'd imagined kissing would be. It was wild and messy and absolutely perfect. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jackson pressed his forehead to hers. "We definitely shouldn't do that again," he said. "Definitely not," Amber agreed. Then she pulled him down for another kiss. Number Chapter 6. Amber woke alone on the living room floor, wrapped in a blanket she didn't remember getting. Morning light streamed through the windows, and she could hear the ocean through the open deck doors. For one blissful second, she felt peaceful. Then, memory crashed back. She'd kissed Jackson. Multiple times. They'd spent hours tangled together on the floor, kissing until her lips were swollen and her brain was completely offline. At some point, he'd grabbed the throw blanket from the couch and wrapped it around them. At some point, she'd fallen asleep with her head on his chest. And now he was gone. Amber sat up, her heart pounding with panic and embarrassment and residual desire. What had she been thinking? This was exactly the kind of complication she'd spent her entire academic career avoiding. She found Jackson on the deck, staring out at the water with a coffee mug in his hands. "Hey," she said. He turned, and his expression was so carefully neutral it made her stomach drop. "Morning. About last night. We don't have to talk about it." "I think we do." Jackson set down his mug. "Look, I get it. It was late, we were tired, things happened. It doesn't have to mean anything. The words hit Amber like cold water. Right. Of course. We still have to work together all summer. Probably easier if we just forget it happened. Forget it. Yeah. Amber forced herself to nod, even as something crumbled inside her chest. This was good. This was smart. They were being mature and professional and… Unless, Jackson said quietly, you don't want to forget it. She looked up sharply. His careful neutrality had cracked, revealing something raw underneath. Because I've been out here for an hour trying to convince myself that kissing you was a mistake, and I can't do it. It's the least mistake thing I've ever done. Jackson, I know it's complicated. I know we're supposed to be partners. I know I'm the last person you should want. He took a step closer. But I can't stop thinking about how you looked at me, how you felt, how right it was. Amber's carefully constructed defenses were crumbling. This could ruin everything. Or it could be the best thing that ever happened to us. You don't know that. You're right, I don't. Another step. But I know that I've been half in love with you since sophomore year, and last night was the first time I thought you might feel something too. Her breath caught. Sophomore year? The Marine Bio Group project. You stayed up all night helping me understand phosphorus cycles because I was too proud to admit I was confused. You made terrible jokes to keep us awake. You smiled at me like I wasn't just the surf guy. He was right in front of her now. I've been trying to get that smile again ever since. You humiliated me at the debate. I was 20 years old and terrified that you'd see through me, see that I was failing, that I was barely holding it together. So I played it like a joke, made you the enemy instead of someone I was desperate to impress. He shook his head. It was cruel and I'm sorry. I've been sorry for 2 years. Amber's eyes stung. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? He had a point. She'd spent 2 years avoiding him, convinced he was everything she didn't want. But now, standing in the morning light with his confession hanging between them, Amber had to face the truth. She'd been lying to herself. About what she wanted, about who Jackson was, about what she felt. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too. I don't know how to do this. The messy, uncertain, out of control thing. Then we'll figure it out together. Jackson reached for her hand. No expectations, no pressure, just… Let's see where this goes. Amber looked at their joined hands, at the way his fingers laced perfectly with hers, and made the scariest decision of her life. Okay. Yeah? Yeah. Jackson's smile was incandescent. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her waist, and Amber let herself sink into it, let herself feel wanted and safe and terrified all at once. For the record, he murmured against her hair, I'm terrible at taking things slow. For the record, I'm terrible at not planning everything. We're going to be a disaster. Absolutely. He pulled back just enough to kiss her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Amber kissed him back, letting go of control for maybe the first time in her life. And it felt like flying. They spent the day pretending to work. Really, they spent the day stealing kisses between sample collections, holding hands when no one could see, and having the kinds of conversations that felt like uncovering buried treasure. Jackson told her about growing up with a single mom who worked 3 jobs, about the pressure to keep his scholarship because he couldn't afford to pay his own way. Amber told him about the crushing weight of being the smart one in her family, about how her brother's illness had made her feel helpless and desperate for control. That's why you plan everything, Jackson said as they sat on the beach during lunch. You're trying to prevent bad things from happening. Logically, I know that's not how it works. But emotionally… She shrugged. Emotionally, you're terrified. Constantly. He kissed her temple. For what it's worth, I think you're the bravest person I know. I'm not brave. I'm just good at pretending. Amber, you're literally studying the ocean, the most unpredictable, uncontrollable force on Earth. If that's not brave, I don't know what is. She'd never thought of it that way. That evening, they worked on the ecosystem models again, but this time, Jackson sat close enough that their shoulders touched. Every few minutes, he'd lean over to check her work, and his proximity would make Amber lose her train of thought completely. You're distracting me, she complained. You're distractible. This is important. So is this. He kissed her neck, just below her ear, and Amber shivered. Jackson, tell me to stop. She should. They had work to do, data to analyze, reports to prepare. But when he kissed her again, trailing his lips down to her shoulder, Amber found she couldn't remember why any of that mattered more than this. "Don't stop," she whispered. Jackson made a rough sound low in his throat and pulled her into his lap. Amber went willingly, straddling his thighs, her hands finding his hair. The kiss was immediately deeper than before, tinged with urgency. His hands slid under her shirt, palms warm against her skin. Amber arched into the touch, gasping when his thumbs brushed the underside of her ribs. "We should move," Jackson said against her mouth. "Couch? Bed? Somewhere that's not the floor?" "Bed," Amber decided. They stumbled down the hallway, kissing the whole way, bumping into walls and laughing between breathless kisses. Jackson's bedroom was closer. They fell onto his bed in a tangle of limbs and want. "Tell me if it's too much," Jackson said, his hand sliding up her thigh. "Tell me if you want to slow down." "I don't want to slow down. Thank God." He kissed her until she was dizzy, until the world narrowed to just his touch, his breath, his body pressed against hers. When he pulled her shirt over her head, Amber should have felt self-conscious. Instead, she felt powerful, watching the way Jackson looked at her like she was art, like she was precious. "You're beautiful," he breathed. "You're not so bad yourself." He laughed and kissed her again, and Amber lost herself in sensation. In the slide of skin against skin, the gasps and whispers, the building heat between them. They didn't go all the way, not yet, but they explored each other with hands and mouths until Amber was shaking, until Jackson groaned her name like a prayer. When they finally collapsed side by side, breathing hard, Amber felt transformed, like she'd discovered a new version of herself. Braver, wilder, alive. "Stay," Jackson said, pulling her close. "Sleep here. We have work tomorrow. We also have an alarm." Amber smiled against his shoulder. "Okay, I'll stay." She fell asleep wrapped in his arms, feeling safe in the chaos for the first time in her life. Number Chapter 7. The bonfire party was Maya's idea. "You've been in Coral Bay for 3 weeks, and you haven't been to a single social event," Amber's best friend said over video call. "That's tragic even for you." "I've been working." "You've been hiding in a beach house. There's a difference." Maya leaned closer to the camera. "Come on, one party. Meet some locals. Remember, you're 20 years old, not 40. "I don't have time for lied." "Amber, go to the party." So on Saturday night, Amber found herself walking down the beach toward a massive bonfire, surrounded by what looked like half the town's young population. Music pulsed from speakers, people laughed and danced and passed around drinks. Jackson appeared at her side, 2 bottles in hand. "Beer?" "I don't really drink. It's light beer, basically water." He pressed one into her hand anyway. "Relax, we're allowed to have fun." They'd spent the past week in a blissful haze working during the day, tangled together at night, learning each other in ways that felt both thrilling and terrifying. But they'd kept it private, not ready to deal with outside opinions or judgment. Here, though, watching Jackson get pulled into conversations with other surfers, seeing girls openly flirt with him, Amber felt a spike of something uncomfortable. Jealousy. She hated it. Amber Hayes? A guy about her age approached, smiling. "I thought that was you. Tyler Chen, we had organic chemistry together last year." "Oh, right. Hi. What are you doing in Coral Bay?" "Summer research grant. Coastal erosion study." Tyler's eyes lit up. "No way. I'm here with the Marine Conservation Group. We should compare notes." They fell into easy conversation about research methodologies and data collection. Tyler was smart, enthusiastic, and clearly interested in more than just her academic work. Amber was flattered despite herself. "Want to grab another drink?" Tyler asked. Before Amber could answer, Jackson materialized at her elbow. "She's good," he said, voice tight. Tyler looked between them, clearly picking up on the tension. "Oh, are you two?" "Research partners," Amber said at the same time Jackson said, "It's complicated." An awkward silence fell. "I should go find my team," Tyler said. "But hey, Amber, if you want to grab coffee and talk research, I'm around." "Thanks," Amber said. As soon as Tyler left, she turned to Jackson. "What was that?" "What was what?" "The territorial display." "I wasn't." He stopped. "He was flirting with you." So? Jackson's jaw tightened. "You didn't seem to mind." "Are you seriously jealous right now? Are you seriously pretending you don't know what we are to each other?" Amber's frustration flared. "I don't know what we are, Jackson. We haven't defined it. We're just..." "What? Hooking up? Passing time? Jackson flinched like she'd slapped him. Is that really what you think this is? I don't know. We haven't talked about it. Because I thought it was obvious. He stepped closer, voice low and intense. I'm falling for you, Amber. Have been since the first week. I thought you felt the same. Her heart stuttered. I do. You just what? Want to keep your options open? See if Tyler's a better match? That's not fair. None of this is fair. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating off him. I'm standing here watching other guys look at you like I don't exist, and I can't even claim you because we're supposed to be keeping it professional. You're the one who wanted to take it slow. No expectations, remember? That was before I spent every night with you in my arms. Before I knew how you taste your coffee and what you look like first thing in the morning and the sound you make when I... He stopped, breathing hard. This isn't slow anymore, Hayes. Not for me. Amber's defenses were crumbling. I'm scared. Of what? Of this. Of us. Of what happens when summer ends and we have to go back to real life. Then let's not think about that. Jackson cupped her face. Let's just be here, now, together. What if it ruins everything? What if it's the best thing that ever happened to us? Before Amber could respond, someone called Jackson's name. Theo, his surf teammate, was waving him over to where a group had gathered. Go, Amber said. I'll be fine. Jackson hesitated, clearly torn. Seriously, go hang out with your friends. I'm going to walk on the beach for a bit. Amber. We'll talk later. Promise. He kissed her forehead and left reluctantly. Amber watched him go, her emotions a tangled mess. She did feel something for Jackson, something intense and terrifying and real. But the logical part of her brain kept throwing up warnings. They were research partners. They had to work together all summer. Getting emotionally involved was complicated and messy. He's got it bad for you. Amber turned to find a girl about her age, blonde and beautiful, watching her with an unreadable expression. Sorry? Jackson. I've known him since freshman year, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. The girl held out her hand. Sabrina Cole. I'm doing marine research here too. Amber Hayes. I know. You won the Hayes Keller grant. Something flickered in Sabrina's eyes. Impressive. Thanks. Must be nice, working with Jackson all summer. He's distracting. Sabrina smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Fair warning, he's got a reputation. Serial dater, never commits. We're just colleagues. Sure, that's what they all say. Sabrina took a sip of her drink. Anyway, I should get back to my team. Good luck with your research. She walked away, leaving Amber with a knot in her stomach. Was Sabrina right? Was Jackson just playing her? He'd said he was falling for her, but what if it was just summer fever? What if she was just another girl in a long line of... Stop it, Amber muttered to herself. She walked down to the water's edge, letting the cool waves wash over her feet. The moon was bright enough to cast silver light across the ocean. In the distance, the bonfire blazed, and she could hear laughter and music. This was supposed to be her summer. Focus, control, building her future. Instead, she was falling for a guy who embodied everything unpredictable. And the scariest part? She didn't want to stop. Jackson found her 20 minutes later. Hey, he said softly, coming to stand beside her. Hey, I'm sorry. For getting jealous. For making a scene. You didn't make a scene. I wanted to. I wanted to tell every guy here that you're mine. He turned to face her. But you're not mine, are I? Because we haven't defined what this is. Amber took a deep breath. I met someone. Sabrina Cole. She said you have a reputation. Had, Jackson corrected, past tense. Before you. How do I know that's true? You don't. Not for sure. He stepped closer. But I can tell you that I've never felt like this before. Never wanted to spend every second with someone. Never lost sleep because I was too busy thinking about her smile. Jackson. I'm all in, Amber. Completely. If you want this, if you want us, then I'm yours. Exclusively. No games, no backup plans. His eyes searched hers. But I need to know if you feel the same. This was it. The moment where she had to choose between safe and sorry. Between control and chaos. Between the life she'd planned and the one calling to her. I feel the same, Amber whispered. I'm terrified, but I feel the same. Jackson's smile was like sunrise. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply, thoroughly, with enough emotion to make her dizzy. Then we'll be terrified together, he murmured against her lips. They walked back to the bonfire, hand in hand, and when people looked at them, really looked, Amber didn't let go. She leaned into Jackson's side, claimed him as surely as he'd claimed her. This was real. This was happening. And for once in her carefully planned life, Amber Hayes was okay with not knowing exactly how it would end. Chapter 8. The storm hit on a Tuesday night with zero warning. Amber had been tracking the weather reports obsessively as she tracked everything, and they'd all predicted clear skies for the week. But nature, as Jackson liked to remind her, didn't care about predictions. The first crack of thunder woke her from a dead sleep. Rain hammered the roof like bullets, and wind screamed through the eaves. Amber grabbed her phone. 2:47 a.m. A crash from somewhere in the house made her jump. She found Jackson in the living room, already dressed, securing their research equipment away from the windows. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Bad enough that we should move everything away from the glass." He handed her a tarp. "Help me cover the electronics." They worked quickly, wrapping laptops and testing equipment in waterproof materials and moving them to the bathroom, the most interior room in the house. Outside, the storm intensified. Lightning flashed, illuminating the beach in stark white bursts. "Is the data backed up?" Jackson asked. "Cloud and external drive. Thank God for your paranoid planning." Another tremendous crash made them both freeze. Through the deck windows, they watched a section of the neighbor's fence tumble across the sand. "We should stay away from the windows," Amber said. Agreed. They retreated to Jackson's bedroom. It faced inland, away from the worst of the wind. Amber sat on the bed, adrenaline making her hands shake. She'd been through storms before, but never in a beach house that felt like it might blow away. Jackson sat beside her, taking her hand. "Hey. We're okay. I know. You don't look like you know. I'm just running through contingency plans. If the roof goes, we shelter in the bathroom. If there's flooding, we move to..." "Amber." Jackson turned her to face him. "Stop planning for disasters that haven't happened yet. But they could happen. And we'll deal with them if they do, together." He kissed her forehead. "For now, we're safe, dry, and together. That's enough." The power cut out, plunging them into darkness, broken only by lightning flashes. Amber made an involuntary sound of distress. "Come here!" Jackson pulled her against his chest, wrapping both arms around her. "I've got you." She buried her face in his shoulder, breathing in his scent, salt, and sunscreen, and something uniquely him. Slowly, her racing heart began to calm. "Tell me something," she said. "Distract me." "Like what?" "Anything. Your favorite memory, your biggest fear, whatever." Jackson was quiet for a moment, his hand stroking her hair. "My favorite memory is from last week. Tuesday afternoon. When we finished early and you suggested ice cream instead of more work. That's your favorite memory?" You smiled at me like I'd hung the moon just for suggesting mint chocolate chip, and I realized I'd do anything, absolutely anything, to see that smile again. His voice went soft. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Capital T trouble. Amber's throat tightened. "What's your biggest fear? Losing this? Losing you?" He tightened his hold. "Going back to campus in September and having you realize this was just a summer thing." "It's not just a summer thing. Promise?" "I promise." They stayed like that for hours, wrapped around each other while the storm raged outside. Jackson told her stories about growing up in California, about learning to surf from his dad before everything fell apart. Amber talked about her brother, about the guilt she still carried from feeling relieved when he got better because it meant she could stop being the strong one. "You're allowed to be human," Jackson said. "You don't have to be perfect all the time. I know that logically. But emotionally? Emotionally, I'm terrified that if I'm not perfect, I'm nothing." "You could never be nothing." He kissed her temple. "You're brilliant and brave and beautiful, and the fact that you don't see it kills me." Amber pulled back enough to look at him. In the darkness, she could barely make out his features, but she felt the intensity of his gaze. "Make me believe it," she whispered. "What?" "Show me. Make me feel beautiful." Jackson's breath caught. "Amber, I want you. I've wanted you for weeks. And I'm tired of being scared." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. His hand slid under her sleep shirt, palms warm against her skin. Amber arched into the touch, gasping when his thumbs brushed the undersides of her breasts. "Tell me if I should stop." Jackson murmured against her throat. "Don't stop. Please don't stop." He pulled her shirt over her head, and even in the darkness, Amber felt exposed, vulnerable, but Jackson's hands were reverent as they explored her body, his mouth following the path of his fingers. "So beautiful," he breathed. "God, Amber, you're perfect." "I'm not. You are. To me, you are." He laid her back on the bed, covering her body with his own. The weight of him felt right, safe, and exciting all at once. When he kissed her again, Amber let herself fall into sensation, into the slide of skin against skin, the building heat between them, the way Jackson whispered her name like a prayer. They took their time, learning each other in the darkness. Every touch felt like discovery, every kiss like coming home. When they finally joined together, Amber cried out from the intensity of it. Jackson moved with exquisite care, watching her face, responding to every gasp and whimper. "You okay?" he asked, voice strained. "More than okay." "Don't stop." They found a rhythm together, building towards something that felt inevitable. Amber clung to his shoulders, lost in the pleasure of it, in the intimacy of being completely vulnerable with another person. When release crashed over her, it felt like flying and falling all at once. Jackson followed moments later, groaning her name into her shoulder. They collapsed together, breathing hard, sweat slicked and trembling. "Holy shit," Jackson breathed. Amber laughed, actually laughed, feeling loose and satisfied, and completely transformed. "Yeah, holy shit." He rolled to his side, pulling her with him so they were face to face. "You okay?" "I'm perfect." "You are," he kissed her softly. "You really, really are." Outside, the storm was beginning to fade. The rain gentled to a steady patter, and the thunder grew distant. But inside Jackson's arms, Amber felt like her own storm was just beginning. A good storm. The kind that changed everything. Chapter 9. They woke to sunshine and destruction. The beach was littered with debris, tree branches, chunks of fence, random objects that had blown in from God knows where. Their deck had survived mostly intact, but the research station they'd set up on the North Beach would need to be checked. "Coffee first," Jackson mumbled, his arm tight around Amber's waist. "Damage assessment second. We should check the equipment." After coffee, Amber smiled against his chest. "You're a terrible influence." "You're only now figuring that out?" They eventually made it out of bed, moving with the easy familiarity of people who'd crossed an irrevocable line. Jackson made coffee, while Amber checked their backup data, relieved to find everything intact. "North Beach?" he asked, handing her a mug. North Beach. The walk took longer than usual, requiring them to navigate around storm debris. Other residents were out doing the same, surveying damage, helping neighbors. A few people waved at them, and Amber noticed the knowing looks when they saw her and Jackson together. Small towns. Everyone knew everything. Their research station had taken a beating. 2 of the sample collection traps had been torn from their moorings and tossed up the beach. The water quality monitoring equipment had been buried in sand, but the damage was repairable. Nothing was completely destroyed. "Could have been worse," Jackson said. "Could have been better." Always the optimist. They spent the morning digging out equipment and resetting their monitoring stations. Hard, physical work that left them both exhausted and sun-drunk by noon. "Lunch?" Jackson suggested. Desperately. They headed to the small cafe in town, Amber's first real venture into Coral Bay's social scene. The place was packed with storm refugees seeking coffee and comfort food. They found a small table in the corner. "Amber Hayes?" She looked up to find Professor Lang standing beside their table, eyebrows raised. Amber's stomach dropped. "Professor Lang, I thought you were in the Arctic. Storm forced us to port early. Flew back yesterday." Her gaze shifted to Jackson, then back to Amber. "How's the research progressing?" "Excellent. We've completed initial surveys of all 4 sites and begun ecosystem modeling. The storm damage is minimal. We should be back on schedule by tomorrow." "And you 2 are working well together?" Professor Lang's tone suggested she'd noticed exactly how well. "Very well," Jackson said smoothly. "Amber's been invaluable. The modeling work especially. She's brilliant. I'm aware of Miss Hayes' capabilities." Professor Lang's expression softened slightly. "I'm glad to hear the partnership is productive. I'll expect your midsummer progress report next week." "It'll be ready," Amber promised. After Professor Lang left, Amber dropped her head into her hands. "She knows." "Knows what?" "About us." Did you see how she looked at us? She saw two research partners having lunch. She saw, Amber gestured vaguely between them, this, whatever this is, written all over our faces. Jackson reached across the table to take her hand. Would that be so terrible? She's our supervisor. This could affect the grant, our evaluations. Or she could be happy that we're working well together and leave it alone. He squeezed her fingers. Stop catastrophizing. I'm not catastrophizing. I'm being realistic. You're being anxious. He said it gently, without judgment. Which I get. But Amber, we haven't done anything wrong. We're two adults who happen to be working together. What happens outside of research hours is our business. Logically, she knew he was right. Emotionally, she couldn't shake the feeling that happiness this intense had to come with consequences. The progress report consumed their next 3 days. Amber threw herself into data analysis with obsessive focus, determined to prove that their partnership was professional and productive. Jackson helped without complaint, even when she worked until 2 a.m. perfecting graphs. Hayes, he said on the third night, gently closing her laptop, it's good enough. It's not perfect. It's better than perfect. It's thorough, well-researched, and compelling. He pulled her to her feet. Come to bed. Bed, now, doctor's orders. You're not a doctor. Fine, boyfriend's orders. Amber's heart stuttered. Boyfriend? Jackson froze, clearly realizing what he'd said. I mean, if that's okay? I know we haven't officially propsin. It's okay. She stepped into his space, wrapping her arms around his neck. Boyfriend works for me. His smile was incandescent. Yeah? Yeah. They made it to his bedroom, but the kissing started in the hallway. By the time they fell onto the bed, Amber's careful report brain had completely shut down, replaced by pure sensation. Jackson worshipped her body with hands and mouth until she was begging. Then he made love to her slowly, thoroughly, until she came apart in his arms. I love you, he whispered against her temple afterward. Amber's eyes flew open. What? I love you. Jackson propped himself up on one elbow, meeting her gaze. I know it's fast. I know it's probably too soon, but I can't keep it in anymore. I love you, Amber Hayes. Her throat felt tight. 3 months ago, those words would have terrified her. Now, wrapped in Jackson's arms with the ocean singing through the windows, they felt like the most natural thing in the world. I love you too, she whispered. His kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise. They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in years, Amber didn't dream about losing control. She dreamed about flying. Chapter 10. The sabotage started small. A missing data logger, then a corrupted file on the shared drive. Sample labels that had been switched, making a week's worth of collection useless. Amber noticed first because, of course she did, she noticed everything. Something's wrong, she told Jackson over breakfast. What do you mean? Our data. Someone's been tampering with it. Tampering? Amber, you're being paranoid. Am I? 3 pieces of equipment have gone missing in the past week. The pH samples from Tuesday had labels that didn't match my notes, and that file corruption wasn't random, someone deliberately deleted sections. Jackson frowned. Who would do that? I don't know. But someone wants us to fail. They spent the morning double-checking their security measures, adding passwords to shared files, and setting up a camera near their beach equipment. Amber's anxiety was spiking, all her worst fears about chaos and lack of control coming true. Hey, Jackson said, catching her hand, we'll figure this out. What if we can't? What if someone destroys our research and we lose the grant? Then we'll rebuild. We have backups, remember? Your paranoid planning is actually paying off. Despite everything, Amber smiled. You're really committed to this silver lining thing, aren't you? Someone has to balance out your doomsday scenarios. That night, they worked late, replacing the corrupted data from Amber's backup files. It was tedious, exhausting work, but Jackson stayed by her side through all of it, never complaining. Thank you, she said around midnight. For what? For being patient with me. For not making me feel crazy for caring this much. You're not crazy, you're passionate. He kissed her temple. It's one of the things I love about you. They were just heading to bed when Amber's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Stop asking questions. Focus on your own work. This is your only warning. Her blood ran cold. Jackson. He read the message over her shoulder, his expression darkening. What the fuck? Someone's threatened me. We're calling campus security and telling them what? That someone sent a vague text? They won't do anything. Then Professor Lang is in the Arctic again. She left yesterday for another 3 weeks. Amber stared at her phone. We're on our own. Jackson pulled her into his arms. No, we're together. That's different. But Amber couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much worse. The camera caught something 3 days later. Amber was reviewing the footage from their beach station when she saw it. A figure approaching their equipment at 3 a.m., tampering with the sample containers. Jackson, come here. He appeared beside her, looking at the screen. Can you make out who it is? Not clearly, but look. She pointed at a detail. That's a university research vest. Only people in the summer program have those. So it's another student. Someone who wants our grant. They went through the list of other summer research projects in Coral Bay. There were 3. Tyler Chen's Marine Conservation Group, a geology team studying coastal formations, and Sabrina Cole's Marine Ecosystem Project. Sabrina, Amber said. She was runner-up for our grant. She would have gotten it if the university hadn't paired us together. You think she's trying to sabotage us to claim the grant herself? It makes sense. If we fail, the funding could be reassigned. Jackson's jaw tightened. We need proof. They spent the next week being hyper-vigilant, checking equipment twice daily, securing everything, documenting every sample meticulously. The sabotage attempts continued. Equipment moved slightly, files corrupted, threatening texts. But they couldn't catch Sabrina in the act. Until the bonfire. It was another beach party, and Amber had reluctantly agreed to go. They needed to maintain some normalcy, needed to not look like they were under siege. But she couldn't relax, couldn't stop scanning the crowd for threats. Dance with me, Jackson said, pulling her toward the music. I don't dance. You do tonight. He wrapped his arms around her waist, and despite everything, Amber felt some of her tension ease. This was good. This was real. Whatever was happening with the sabotage, they were facing it together. I'm going to grab drinks, Jackson said after a few songs. Want anything? Water's fine. He kissed her and disappeared into the crowd. Amber stood alone, suddenly self-conscious, when Tyler Chen approached. Hey stranger, haven't seen you much lately. Been busy with research. Yeah, I heard things have been complicated. Equipment going missing? His expression was sympathetic. That sucks. How did you know about that? Sabrina mentioned it. She said she saw you guys looking stressed. Amber's radar pinged. Sabrina talks about us? I mean, everyone knows about the Hayes Keller grant. Big deal, right? Prestigious. Lot of people wanted it. Tyler shrugged. Sabrina's still pretty bitter about not getting it. Bitter enough to sabotage us. Tyler's eyes widened. Whoa, you think? Forget I said anything. But the seed was planted. As soon as Tyler left, Amber went looking for Sabrina. She found her near the bonfire, talking to a group of students. Can I talk to you? Amber asked. Sabrina's smile was cold. Sure. They moved away from the crowd, down the beach where the music was quieter. I know it's you, Amber said without preamble. Excuse me? The sabotage? The threats? I know you're trying to destroy our research. That's a serious accusation. And I have proof. Video footage of someone in a university vest tampering with our equipment. Something flickered in Sabrina's expression. Fear, maybe, or anger. You can't prove that was me, but it was you. Sabrina's mask cracked. You don't deserve that grant. You barely did any original research. You just got paired with Jackson because the university needed to justify funding 2 projects. That's not true, isn't it? You're riding his charm and my hard work. She stepped closer. I spent 2 years developing that proposal. I should have gotten that grant, not you. So you tried to destroy our work instead of focusing on your own? I tried to level the playing field. You tried to cheat. I tried to survive. Sabrina's voice rose. Do you know what it's like to watch someone else get handed everything you worked for? To see them parade around like they're special when they're just lucky? This isn't luck, it's hard work. It's privilege, and I'm done watching privileged people win. Before Amber could respond, Sabrina shoved her. Hard. Amber stumbled backward, her feet catching in the sand. She fell, landing wrong, her wrist screaming with pain. Amber! Jackson appeared out of nowhere, putting himself between her and Sabrina. What the fuck did you do? She fell, Sabrina said, but her voice shook. Bullshit. Jackson helped Amber up. his face murderous. "I saw you push her. We all did." Amber looked past him to see Tyler and several other students watching, phones out, clearly recording. Sabrina's face went white. "You're done," Jackson said quietly. "I'm reporting this to the university. You'll be lucky if you're not expelled. It was just a push. It was assault and attempted sabotage, and probably a dozen other violations." He turned to Amber. "Can you walk? My wrist hurts. We're getting you to a hospital." As they left the beach, Amber leaned into Jackson's side, her wrist throbbing but her mind clear. It was over. Sabrina had shown her hand, and there were witnesses. They were safe. The research was safe. Everything was going to be okay. Chapter 11. The ER confirmed what Amber had suspected. Sprained wrist, nothing broken. They wrapped it, gave her painkillers, and sent her home with instructions to rest. Jackson hovered like an anxious parent. "I'm fine," Amber said for the 5th time as they pulled up to the beach house. "You're injured because someone attacked you." It was a shove, not an attack. Semantics. He helped her out of the car with exaggerated care. "You're resting tomorrow. No arguments. We have samples to collect, which I can handle alone." "Jackson, Amber." He stopped, taking her good hand. "Let me take care of you, please." Her throat tightened. She wasn't used to being taken care of. Wasn't used to anyone putting her needs first. "Okay," she whispered. That night, Jackson was impossibly gentle, helping her change, bringing her water, adjusting pillows until she was comfortable. He climbed into bed beside her, carefully arranging her injured wrist on a pillow. "This is ridiculous," Amber said. "I'm not made of glass." "No, you're made of steel and stubbornness." He kissed her forehead. "But even steel needs support sometimes." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You're only now noticing." She laughed, then winced as it jostled her wrist. Jackson immediately shifted, his expression concerned. "Pain meds wearing off?" "A little." He got her another dose, then settled back beside her. "Want distraction?" "What kind?" "Tell me about after, when summer ends and we go back to campus." Amber's stomach tightened. They'd been avoiding this conversation for weeks. "What about it?" "I want to know if you'll still be mine." "Is that a real question?" "It feels real right now." Jackson traced patterns on her arm. "You're going back to your lab work, your perfect GPA, your structured life." "I'm going back to surf team and struggling through advanced courses." "We're going to be busy." Distracted. So what if you realize you don't need the chaos anymore? That I was just a summer thing?" Amber turned to face him, ignoring the protest from her wrist. "You're not a summer thing. You're the realest thing I've ever felt." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She kissed him softly. "I love you. That doesn't have an expiration date." His arms tightened around her. "I love you too. So much it scares me. Then we'll be scared together." They fell asleep, wrapped around each other. And when Amber woke the next morning to find Jackson had already left for fieldwork, she felt something unfamiliar. Trust. He would handle the research. He would protect their work. She didn't have to control everything. For the first time in her life, Amber Hayes let go. Jackson returned at noon with lunch and good news. "Professor Lang called," he said. Sabrina confessed everything. She's been expelled from the program and banned from campus. Just like that, Tyler and the others sent her the video footage, combined with the evidence we'd already gathered. He shrugged. She didn't have a choice. Amber sank onto the couch, relief flooding through her. "It's really over. It's really over." Jackson sat beside her, carefully arranging her wrist. "Professor Lang also said our midsummer report was excellent. She's recommending us for additional funding next semester." "She is?" "Apparently we're a model of productive collaboration or something." His grin was wicked. If only she knew what kind of collaboration we've been doing. Jackson. "What? I'm just saying, our teamwork is very thorough, very hands-on." Despite herself, Amber laughed. "You're terrible. You love it. I love you." "That too." They spent the afternoon on the deck, Amber reading, while Jackson worked on data analysis. The domesticity of it was both foreign and perfect, just existing together, no drama, no threats, nothing but sunshine and ocean sounds. "You know what I think?" Jackson said eventually. "What?" "I think Sabrina did us a favor." Amber lowered her book. "How do you figure?" "She forced us to work as a real team, to trust each other. If she hadn't been sabotaging us, we might have kept working separately, never really connecting. We would have connected anyway. Maybe, but this way, we know for sure. We know we can face problems together, that we're stronger as a unit. Amber considered this. He might be right. The sabotage had forced them to communicate, to rely on each other, to stop treating the partnership as a competition. Okay, she conceded. Maybe she did us a favor. See, I'm wise. Don't push it. He laughed and pulled her closer. Amber sank into his embrace, her injured wrist carefully protected between them, and felt something close to complete happiness. This was what she'd been missing her whole life. Not control, not perfection, connection, love, trust. The chaotic, beautiful mess of letting someone in. Chapter 12. With the sabotage threat eliminated, the rest of July passed in a sun-soaked blur. Amber and Jackson fell into an easy rhythm work in the mornings, lunch on the beach, afternoons spent either collecting data or stealing away for increasingly adventurous activities. I can't believe you've never been surfing, Jackson said one morning. I can't believe you think I'd willingly throw myself at waves. Come on, one lesson. I promise I'll keep you safe. Amber looked at the ocean, glittering and inviting and absolutely terrifying. Every logical part of her brain screamed warnings. But the part that was learning to embrace uncertainty? That part said yes. Fine, one lesson. Jackson's face lit up like she'd given him the world. The surfing lesson was a disaster in the best possible way. Amber fell off the board 17 times. She swallowed seawater. She got knocked over by waves that Jackson swore were super gentle. But when she finally managed to stand for 3 whole seconds, his cheer was so genuine and proud that all the frustration melted away. You did it! He grabbed her in the water, spinning her around. I stood up for literally 3 seconds, and it was beautiful. He kissed her, both of them tasting like salt. You were beautiful. They made love on the beach that night, hidden in a cove where no one could see them. Sand everywhere, stars overhead, the sound of waves mixing with their gasps and whispers. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely perfect. I want to remember this forever, Amber said afterward, lying on Jackson's chest. We will. We'll come back here. Promise? Promise. August arrived with the brutal reminder that summer was finite. They had 3 weeks left before campus started again. 3 weeks before this perfect bubble burst. Amber tried not to think about it, tried to focus on the present, on the research that was going better than anyone had hoped. Their data was solid, their analysis thorough. Professor Lang had already told them the final report would likely be published, a huge achievement for undergraduate researchers. But underneath the success, anxiety churned. Talk to me, Jackson said one evening. They were on the deck, watching the sunset, and Amber had been quiet for too long. About what? Whatever's making you do that thing with your hands. She looked down to find her fingers twisting together her anxiety tell. I'm fine. Amber, I'm just thinking about September. What about it? What if everything changes? What if we get back to campus and this? She gestured between them. Doesn't work anymore? Jackson was quiet for a long moment. Do you want it to work? Yes, but wanting something doesn't make it true. No, but being willing to fight for it does. He turned her to face him. I'm fighting for this. For us. Are you? I'm terrified. I know, but that's not what I asked. Amber took a breath. Yes. I'm fighting for us. Then we'll figure it out. Different classes, busy schedules, whatever. We'll make it work. You sound so sure. That's because I am. He cupped her face. I didn't fall in love with you because it was convenient, Amber. I fell in love with you because you're you. That doesn't change just because the location does. Tears pricked her eyes. How are you so good at this? Good at what? Believing in people. In possibilities. In happy endings. Someone has to balance out your catastrophizing. He kissed her softly. Besides, you're getting better at it. The old Amber Hayes would never have gone surfing. The old Amber Hayes had better self-preservation instincts. The old Amber Hayes was lonely. He was right. She'd been lonely for so long she'd stopped noticing. But now, wrapped in Jackson's arms with the ocean singing its eternal song, Amber felt full. Complete? Home. Chapter 13. The final week of summer arrived too fast. Their research was complete, all data collected, analyzed, and compiled into a report that Professor Lang called publication quality work. They'd succeeded beyond anyone's expectations, including their own, but success felt bittersweet when it meant ending this chapter. "We should do something special," Jackson said on their second-to-last night. "Celebrate. Like what?" "I don't know. Something memorable. Something that marks this summer as important." They ended up at the bonfire, the same beach where they'd fought about jealousy, where Sabrina had attacked Amber, where so much had happened. But tonight was different. Tonight was theirs. They danced until Amber's feet hurt. They drank cheap beer and ate s'mores and laughed with people who'd become friends over the summer. When the crowd thinned and the fire burned low, Jackson pulled Amber away from the group. "Come with me." He led her down the beach to their cove, the one where they'd made love under the stars. It looked different now. Magical in the moonlight. "I wanted to give you something," Jackson said. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." He pulled out a small box. Amber's heart stopped. "Jackson, it's not that. I mean, not yet. Maybe someday. But," he laughed nervously, "I'm rambling." "You are." He opened the box to reveal a necklace, a small pendant in the shape of a wave, carved from what looked like driftwood. "I made it," he said. "From a piece of wood I found on our first day, doing field work. I've been working on it all summer." He lifted it from the box. "The ocean brought us together, changed us both. I wanted you to have something to remember that." Amber's throat was too tight for words. She turned, letting him fasten it around her neck. The pendant rested right over her heart. "It's perfect," she whispered. "You're perfect, Jackson. I mean it. You're everything I never knew I needed." His hands settled on her hips. "You challenged me, believed in me, saved my future when you didn't have to. You saved mine too, made me see that control isn't the same as safety, that sometimes the best things are the ones you can't plan." He kissed her, then soft and deep and full of promise. Amber kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it. Love and gratitude and hope and fear all mixed together. They made love in the cove one last time, slow and tender and tinged with bitter sweetness. Afterward, wrapped in Jackson's arms with the ocean whispering secrets, Amber felt both completely happy and utterly terrified. "I don't want this to end," she admitted. "It's not ending. It's just changing. What if change ruins it? What if change makes it better?" He stroked her hair. "We're not the same people we were in June, Amber. We've grown, learned. If we can handle sabotage and storms and living together for 3 months, we can handle separate class schedules. You make it sound simple. It won't be, but simple isn't the same as impossible." She lifted her head to look at him. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise, you're only now noticing." Amber laughed through her tears and kissed him again. They stayed in the cove until dawn painted the sky pink and gold, holding each other against the inevitable march of time. Tomorrow they'd pack. Tomorrow they'd say goodbye to the beach house and Coral Bay. Tomorrow summer would officially end. But tonight, they had each other and the ocean, and the quiet promise that some things, the really important things, didn't end just because seasons changed. Chapter 14. The drive back to campus was 4 hours of mounting anxiety disguised as comfortable silence. They'd decided to take Amber's car, which meant Jackson rode with her instead of driving separately. It meant their stuff was mixed together in the trunk, their summer equipment packed side by side like a metaphor. "You're doing that thing again," Jackson said an hour in. "What thing?" "The mental spiral thing. I can practically hear you catastrophizing." Amber's hands tightened on the wheel. "I'm not." "You are. Talk to me. What if people judge us? What if they think I only succeeded because I was sleeping with my research partner? Then they're idiots who don't understand how hard you worked. What if Professor Lang regrets recommending us? She won't. What if your surf team gives you shit for dating me? Then I'll tell them to fuck off." Jackson reached over to squeeze her knee. "Amber, stop borrowing trouble." "I can't help it." "I know. But I'm here. We're facing this together, remember?" She took a shaky breath. Together. Together. They stopped for lunch at a diner halfway back. As they slid into a booth, Amber's phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Oh my God, you're back soon. Coffee tomorrow? Need all the summer details." Amber smiled. At least one thing would be easy. Maya had been rooting for her and Jackson since before Amber had admitted her own feelings. Your roommate? Jackson asked. Yeah. She wants details. Are you going to tell her? Everything. Even the good parts? Especially the good parts. His grin was wicked. I hope you're prepared to make her very jealous. They got back to campus at 4 in the afternoon. The quad was already buzzing with returning students unloading cars and greeting friends. Amber felt the familiar anxiety of being back in her academic environment, the pressure, the competition, the constant need to perform. But she also felt something new, confidence. She'd survived a summer of chaos. She'd fallen in love. She'd learned to let go of control and trust another person. She'd discovered that she was stronger than her anxiety, braver than her fear. Your place or mine? Jackson asked as they pulled into student parking. We should probably unpack separately. Probably. He leaned over to kiss her. But I'm coming over later. Fair warning. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. They spent the next few hours unpacking, settling back into their respective apartments. Amber's roommate Maya arrived just as she was finishing. Oh my God! Maya threw her arms around Amber. You're tan and glowing and wearing a necklace you definitely didn't have before. It's from him. Don't even try to lie. Maya grabbed Amber's hands. Tell me everything, every single detail. So Amber did. She told Maya about the beach house and the sabotage and falling in love despite every logical reason not to. She told her about surfing and storms and discovering that she was capable of letting someone in. By the end, Maya was crying. This is the greatest love story I've ever heard. She sobbed. You're like a romance novel come to life. It's not that dramatic. It's exactly that dramatic. You hated him, and now you love him. That's peak enemies to lovers. Despite herself, Amber laughed. Maybe it was dramatic. Maybe her whole summer had been one big cliché. But it was her cliché, and she wouldn't trade it for anything. Jackson showed up at 8 with takeout and his laptop. Figured we could compare class schedules, he said. See how much overlap we have. They spread out on Amber's bed, carefully platonic, since Maya was in the next room and pulled up their course registrations. Okay, Jackson said. I've got advanced aquatic systems on Tuesdays and Thursdays, marine policy on Wednesdays, and oh fuck. What? Competitive swimming practice is 4 days a week now. Coach moved it to mornings. Amber's stomach sank. She had early labs on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If his practices were mornings, that meant, we're going to have like 3 free hours a week together, she said quietly. That's not true. We'll make time. How? You'll be at practice while I'm at lab. I'll be at study group while you're at meets. We'll be lucky if we see each other once a week. Jackson closed his laptop. So we'll be creative. Lunch dates between classes. Study sessions together. FaceTime when we can't meet up. That's not the same as what we had this summer. No, it's different. But different doesn't mean bad. He took her hands. Amber, I know this is going to be hard. I know it won't be the same as living together and working side by side every day. But I still want this. I still want you. Even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient, because that means it matters, that we're willing to work for it. Amber searched his face for doubt and found only certainty. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her softly. We survived 3 months of forced proximity and mutual irritation. We can survive busy schedules. Together? Together. They spent the rest of the night mapping out their schedules, finding pockets of time where their lives could intersect. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the endless togetherness of summer, but it was real, and real, Amber was learning, was better than perfect. Chapter 15. The first month of fall semester was brutal. Classes were harder than Amber expected. Her advanced ecology course required 3 hours of lab work per week, plus field observations. Her marine conservation seminar demanded constant reading and analysis. On top of that, she was working with Professor Lang to prepare their summer research for publication, a huge opportunity that also meant additional meetings and revisions. Jackson's schedule was equally packed. Surf team training intensified as they prepared for regional competitions. His advanced marine systems course, the one he'd nearly failed before, demanded serious dedication, and he'd taken on a part-time job at the campus aquarium to help cover expenses. They texted constantly. Good morning messages and good night calls. Stolen lunch dates where they had 30 minutes to eat and catch up before running to their next commitment. Weekend study sessions that sometimes turned into makeout sessions, that sometimes turned into frustrated discussions about how little time they had. It was hard, really hard. But they were making it work. "I miss you," Amber said one night over FaceTime. It was past midnight, and they were both exhausted, but neither wanted to hang up. "I miss you too." 2 more days until our beach anniversary date, though. They'd planned it weeks ago, a day trip back to Coral Bay, to visit their cove and remember. Amber had been counting down. "I can't wait." "Me either." Jackson yawned. "You should sleep. You have that big exam tomorrow." "So should you." "I will, right after you." "That's not how it works." "Sure it is. I need to see you fall asleep first. To make sure you actually rest instead of staying up studying." Amber's heart squeezed. "You're ridiculous." "You love it." "I love you." "I love you too. Now close your eyes." She did, phone propped on her pillow so Jackson could watch. Within minutes, exhaustion pulled her under. When she woke the next morning, her phone screen showed he'd stayed on the call for another hour after she'd fallen asleep. Their anniversary trip to Coral Bay was perfect. They drove down early Saturday morning, arriving at the beach just as the sun crested the horizon. The cove looked exactly as they remembered, beautiful and private and full of memories. 3 months since we met, Jackson said, pulling her into his arms. 3 months since we started hating each other. And 3 months since I started falling in love with you. Amber pulled back. "You loved me from the beginning?" "Maybe not love, but something. Intrigue, fascination, the feeling that you were going to completely upend my life." He tucked hair behind her ear. "I was right, by the way." "I upended your life?" "In the best possible way." They spent the day recreating their summer. Swimming in the cove, collecting shells, making love on the beach when they were sure no one could see. It felt both familiar and new, like coming home and going on an adventure all at once. As the sun set, painting the sky in impossible colors, Jackson pulled out his phone. "I want to remember this," he said. "Us, here, now." They took a selfie, wind-blown and sun-kissed and completely happy. Amber made it her phone background immediately. "You know what I realized?" she said as they packed up to leave. "What?" "I'm not scared anymore. Not like I was. I mean, I'm still anxious about things. But the big fear, the one about losing control, about things falling apart, it's gone." "What changed?" "You, us." She squeezed his hand. "I learned that I can't control everything, but I can choose who I trust, who I let in, and I choose you." Jackson's eyes got suspiciously bright. "That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Don't let it go to your head." "Too late. My head is enormous now." They drove back to campus as the stars emerged, hands linked across the center console, and Amber felt something close to perfect peace. This was her life now. Balancing chaos and structure, work and love, independence and partnership, and it was good. Better than good. It was everything. Professor Lang called them both into her office the first week of October. "I have news," she said, looking far too pleased with herself. Amber and Jackson exchanged nervous glances. "Your summer research has been accepted for publication in the Journal of Coastal Studies," Professor Lang continued. "It will be featured in the spring issue, and the editorial board has requested you both present at the National Marine Sciences Conference in March." Amber's brain short-circuited. "Present at the national conference? Your work is exceptional. The modeling component, especially Jackson. Your analysis of ecosystem interconnectivity was particularly impressive given your previous difficulties with the subject matter." Jackson's face flushed. "Professor Lang, No need to explain. Your work this summer speaks for itself. You've proven you're capable of graduate-level research when properly motivated." She turned to Amber. "And Miss Hayes, your methodological approach and data organization set a new standard for undergraduate coastal studies. I'll be recommending you both for research assistantships next semester." After they left her office, Amber and Jackson stood in the hallway, stunned. "Did that really just happen?" Amber asked. "I think so. We're getting published. We're getting published." Then they were kissing, right there in the middle of the Marine Sciences building, not caring who saw, because they'd done it. Not just survived the summer, but thrived. Not just completed their research, but exceeded every expectation. Together. "I'm so proud of you." Amber said against his lips. I'm proud of us. Us, I like that. Me too. They walked across campus hand in hand, already planning their conference presentation, already dreaming about graduate school and research, and the future stretching ahead of them. It wouldn't always be easy. They'd still have busy schedules and difficult classes, and moments where the distance felt impossible. But they'd proven they could handle hard things. They'd proven they were stronger together than apart. That summer had changed them both from enemies to lovers, from individuals to partners, from people afraid of chaos to people who embraced it. And as they watched the sunset paint the campus in gold, Amber Hayes realized something profound. She'd spent her whole life trying to control the ocean. But Jackson had taught her how to ride the waves instead. Epilogue. 1 year later. The beach house looked exactly the same. Amber stood on the deck of Beach House 7, breathing in salt air and memories. They'd rented it again for a week, partly for nostalgia, partly because they were collecting follow-up data for their published research, but mostly because this place had become sacred to them. Still as creaky as I remember, Jackson said, coming up behind her to wrap his arms around her waist. Some things never change. Some things do, though. He turned her to face him. We're not the same people who showed up here last summer. He was right. Amber had cut her hair shorter, finally admitting she'd only kept it long because her mother preferred it. Jackson had a small scar above his left eyebrow from a surfing accident in November. But the changes went deeper than appearance. Amber had learned to say no to extra commitments, to prioritize her mental health over perfect grades. She'd started therapy, finally addressing the anxiety that had controlled her for so long. She'd even joined an intramural volleyball team, not because she was good at it, but because it was fun. Jackson had made Dean's List both semesters. He'd been promoted to co-captain of the surf team. He'd started mentoring freshman students who struggled academically, using his own experience to help them find their footing. They'd both grown, together and separately. I have something for you, Jackson said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Amber's heart jumped. Jackson. It's not that. Not yet. He grinned. But someday, when we're done with undergrad and you've started your PhD program, and I've figured out whether I want to do marine conservation or education, someday soon. He opened the box to reveal a key. I got us the beach house for the whole summer, he explained. Same research grant, same partnership, but this time we know what we're getting into. You want to spend another summer here? With me? I want to spend every summer here with you, and every fall and winter and spring. He took her hand. I know it's early to be making plans, but Amber, you're it for me. You're my person, my partner, my future. Tears streamed down Amber's face. You're my future too. Then let's build it together. Here, where it started, where we learned that love isn't about control, it's about trust. She kissed him, tasting salt and sunlight and promise. The ocean roared its approval behind them, eternal and wild and perfect. Yes, Amber whispered against his lips. Let's build it together. They spent that week recreating their summer. Morning fieldwork and afternoon swims. Late-night data analysis that turned into stargazing, that turned into making love with the windows open and the ocean singing them to sleep. But this time, there was no sabotage, no threats, no uncertainty about what they meant to each other. Just love. Deep and real and tested by time. On their last night, they returned to the cove, the same spot where Jackson had given her the wave necklace, where they'd first admitted their feelings, where everything had changed. Thank you, Amber said, watching the stars emerge. For what? For being patient with me. For seeing past my walls. For teaching me that chaos can be beautiful. Thank you for teaching me that I'm worth more than my charm, that I can be smart and dedicated and still be myself. He pulled her closer. We saved each other, I think. We did. They stayed until the stars filled the sky, talking about their conference presentation in March, about graduate school applications, about the research they wanted to do together. They talked about getting an apartment near campus next year, about adopting a dog, about all the mundane and magical things that made up a life. And when they finally headed back to the beach house, walking hand in hand through the sand, Amber felt completely at peace. She'd come to Coral Bay a year ago, expecting solitude and control. Instead, she'd found partnership and love. She'd expected to study the ocean's erosion patterns. Instead, the ocean had taught her about transformation. She'd been terrified of chaos. But chaos, beautiful, messy, unpredictable chaos, had given her everything she never knew she needed. As they climbed the creaky steps to Beach House 7, Jackson stopped to kiss her one more time. "I love you, Amber Hayes. I love you, Jackson Reed. Together, always together." The ocean whispered its eternal song, and their summer stretched ahead like a promise. This time, they were ready. The end.